Hey everyone, welcome to Zonan Canada. I'm your host, Jesse Betteridge. This is episode 25, so I guess it's kind of a milestone. Joining me this time around is nerdcore rapper Ultra Kleistron and all but co-host of this show, Carl Olson.
That is unfair to call me a co-host.
You are
to call me a rapper.
For legal purposes, you are all but co-host of the show.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's all like you're gonna give me the old Streamline Pictures did to Jerry Beck, and I'll have you'll have me sign a bunch of documents so I'm not liable for anything, and then when you screw up royally, I'm not liable for anything.
Hey, as long as you're on board, it's all good. Also joining us, back on the show, he's been on a couple times before, LA-based animation storyboarder, Corey Barnes.
Hey all,
An
Carl,
episode director and shit, and a bunch of other shit.
Yeah,
I guess your credentials have expanded since the last time you were.
Well, last time I was on, I was working on Family Guy, so it's expanded by, well, technically 2, but
okay.
For all people know, 1. Did you just call Jesse Carl Masick?
I may have implied that Jesse is secretly Carl Masick, and thus holding back Macross from the rest of North America.
It's cruel.
That's a sick burn.
That's a burn for all you weebs out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Corey, before we get started, recently the last couple of ADHD shows, Lucas Brothers Moving Company and Major Lazer, started airing on Teletoon. And you worked on both of those shows to some extent.
Yep.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty heavily involved in Lucas Brothers. Both made it ADHD Friends Night. Rest in peace, Fox ADHD. They are no longer around. They're actually that building is now where they're making Danger and Eggs, a new Amazon animated series.
Of course.
Yeah. But the YouTube channel they did now lives on through something called AOK, which is the same writers and one of the producers. So if you like scientifically accurate Spider-Man and stuff like that, you can go to the YouTube channel AOK and see similar shorts there by the same people.
Can we see your Zizzy short?
Oh, well, that'll be on the Fox ADHD channel forever.
Fantastic.
Fox owns all of the content on that YouTube channel, so they can't take it with them, unfortunately. So that might mean no more scientifically accurate stuff.
The anime parodies are totally on point.
Oh, like Schoolgirl Crush?
Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, I never worked on the shorts, but I did work on. I was a storyboard director on a few episodes of Lucas Brothers, including. Have they aired season 2 yet?
No, they're airing it like 4 nights a week.
Shortly, probably.
Yeah, so they'll get to it.
Okay,
Major Lazer is almost done.
Oh yeah, that's a much shorter show.
Yeah.
But Lucas Brothers, I was board director on the Will Smith episode. I was on the. Because I did additional boards on a bunch of other episodes, but I was board director also for a few season 2 episodes, like the one where they have to go rescue Steve Urkel from the mind of Jaleel White. I was also board director on it's called 420 Matrix. It's basically Taft recently saw the movie Lucy and inspired them to make an episode where the brothers stop smoking weed and it increases their intelligence. Like they can see far away and read minds, and at one point one of the brothers uses his mind to binge watch all of Martin.
God damn.
You're spoiling all this
Already
stuff
missing
for
the show.
Canada, Corey. It's
I'm summarizing. I don't tell you how they end.
okay.
But no, they're good episodes. Check them out. Major Lazer, I was a board revisionist on a couple episodes. I actually lobbied pretty hard to at least get to direct an episode. That never happened though, because they kept putting it off, and then I got another job and had to leave ADHD for a while. But I worked on I can't remember the titles too well, but I think one was called Escape from Rave Island. It's 102 production wise. It's the one where they go to Ibiza and party on it. And this is like long after there was a previous rave on the island where the foam machine, it's kind of like Pompeii. The foam machine overpowers and the island becomes covered in foam, and all the residents of the island are now like encrusted in like fossilized in party foam.
The great thing about Major Lazer is that raving and beats always seem to have these like extremely large-scale global consequences.
Yeah, the fact that the president of Jamaica is the most powerful man in the world in that show
That is fantastic.
That is an idea that I fell in love with immediately. But I think that show had a lot of potential, but I think money-wise they kind of bit off more than they could chew, and I think production could have been handled a little better. But
it has that look of not quite having the budget to pull off what they wanted to do that seems to be a lot of ADHD. But it's a bit of a mess, but I think a really interesting mess.
Yeah, I define a lot of ADHD shows like that, like lots of ambition and not a lot of money.
Major Lazer and Lucas Brothers, are they still in production? I mean, everything I've read seems to indicate that they haven't been canceled. They're just kind of in limbo right now.
When Fox ADHD shut down, everything shut down with it. So everything.
So also Axe Cop?
Yep.
Ah. See, I was under the impression that there was at least some of more of that, but
no, it's I've been gone from that studio for about a year and a half, and that was roughly the time when they were winding down on everything. They actually did have another show that they were working on, but I don't know if they ever finished it or wanted to air it. They didn't get into much detail, but it was announced it's the co-production with Studio Dean.
That thing.
Yeah, nothing came of that. Like that's what that was. But like I know
that was like a big deal for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was. There were bits and pieces that I knew about it, but I don't know whatever truly happened to it.
You can show up in some sort of lost anime panel 15 years from now, little scraps.
Mike can do a panel about it or something. Yeah.
Anybody has that pilot, we're just saying right now, send it over to Mike Toole so we can see this at next year's Otakon.
Moving on to our main topic. So with streaming, there's been a lot of changes going on lately that have kind of ironically given us less to talk about on this show. Like you can watch Sailor Moon now, and Amazon seems to be just around the corner. So when you can't complain about those things, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails when you're.
I feel like we can complain about Amazon until they're actually here. Like we can just agitate about that, but it does.
Now I can complain about Amazon.
Yeah, we're in the same boat there. Yeah, but anyway, Crunchyroll tried an interesting little experiment this past week because, of course, all of us have been constantly checking and rechecking 538.com with bated breath to see what the polls are currently saying about the upcoming U.S. election. They tried to latch on to that kind of thing. And trying something similar, only with what anime is most popular in each region. So at first they posted
of the current season.
Of the current season. So they posted this map of the United States. You can easily look it up on their blog. I'll include a link to it on this podcast and in the social media and stuff.
If you type Crunchyroll map into Google, you'll actually see some of them pop right up.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So they did sort of this electoral map of the United States showing which new shows of this season are most popular in each state. It got like a huge response because it's some pretty interesting results and it's a lot of fun. And then they did one for Canada as well, and they've since done one for Australia. I think they're working on one for UK and Ireland right now. Of course, as they get into more regions like that, it's going to be harder to clear everything, so it's going to take a little longer. But yeah, these maps are a lot of fun and have a lot of things to compare on them. And probably the most notable thing really is how different each of these maps are. It seems kind of obvious that it's not all going to be the same, but as a San Francisco-based tech company, Crunchyroll has been their methods sort of push towards homogenization of the global market more than anything. So it was kind of refreshing to see them do this, that sort of expose all these little cultural differences that come up in different countries. So just to specify what this all refers to, or to specify what these stats actually kind of mean, they don't include ongoing shows, anything from previous seasons or any ongoing shows. So
Actually, yes, they do.
well,
because Gundam second season.
If it's a new season that started this season
Separately, I guess.
Yeah. So like
okay.
Gundam IBO season 2 is its own season. Haikyuu
Split
season
cores count.
Split
and
cores
Haikyuu
count, but anything from the previous season count, which I guess is, now that I think about it, is kind of a kind of arbitrary. But in any case, that's the rules they've set. And it doesn't include shows that Crunchyroll does not have the rights to in a specific. Notably in the Australia map, they don't have the rights to stream Drifters there, which really kind of skews the results when you compare it, especially to the US. But yeah, the results were very different between Canada and the US, and let's just start with the low-hanging fruit. When you look at the US and Canada maps, probably the first thing that's going to stand out to you is the fact that Kiss Him Not Me is the most popular new streaming show in Nunavut.
Yeah. Baffin Island's going nuts for Kiss Him Not Me.
All one otaku there. Huge Tracy comedy fan. Just for our few American listeners, just to clarify, remember, this is like the northernmost province. It's like, it is an actual province. It's not a territory.
It is a territory. It is a territory.
Oh, it's a territory.
Yeah.
So to be clear, it doesn't even have enough people to count as the American equivalent of a state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yet,
yeah.
they love
when I was in elementary school, there was no such territory yet.
Yeah, no, same.
Yeah,
we're all old, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. None of it is the least populated area of Canada. It's mostly composed of somewhat isolated communities and very small cities. So you had to remember that when you look at the number of people who live in Nunavut, the number of those people who are anime fans, the number of those anime fans who watch their shows legally, and the number of those people who don't just watch Naruto, because I'm pretty sure Naruto is actually the number one show in probably almost every shown here, but of course it's discounted because of the rules they've set up. So
simulcast, top fall simulcast is Kiss Him Not Me.
Kiss Him Not Me. Even though this could very well just be like a small group of friends who are watching this, when you considering how much it gets narrowed down. Not to say that people wouldn't watch anime, none of it. Remote or indigenous communities with people who watch anime are totally a thing. In fact, Ian and I were talking about that before recording the previous podcast. It's something I'm kind of interested in researching more. But I think when you look at maps like these, the areas that have the smallest populations are going to have probably like the weirdest results. Also similarly in West Australia, Occultic 9 is the top show.
Jeez.
You got anything to say about that one, Corey?
That show looks gorgeous. It feels like animation-wise, almost like if feature animation wasn't on like 1s, it was on 3s and 4s, because really? The animation's very fluid. But other than that, it's from the creator of Steins Gate, which I guess has some obsession with semicolons, because there's robotic notes and Chaos Head.
Yeah,
same thing. Well, I know why Jesse is immediately turned off from it, as he told me earlier. Just that one character that it's the fetish character with the
gargantuan tits. That's not necessarily the only thing turning me off of it, but it's like it's just, I look at that, I'm just like, that is outside of reason right there. That is indefensible. That is weird, grotesque, fetishy stuff that's just casually dropped into what is ostensibly this, I don't want to say mainstream, but kind of normal show.
Typically those are not the titles that then have like any sort of service element, or at least if it's there, it's not distracting.
Yeah, that is most certainly distracting in this show.
Yeah, the main character is a proud NEET. He's a blogger who hopes to someday make a living off click-throughs to his blog, which I think is I'm trying to remember the name, Kuri Basara. Like, it's about these 9 characters who are all like linked together via this blog. I kind of still don't know what the show's about. It's playing it so very close to the chest. It seems like you're not gonna get payoff until like the end of the season.
Everything I've heard indicates that it, like, the first couple of episodes have just been incomprehensible. I don't know if that was your assessment of it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Guy just puts a semicolon in everything because it worked the first time.
Yep. And especially the second time.
Yes, it's much better the second time, to be fair. Than the first.
I guess, Carl, you had some thoughts on Kiss Him, Not Me.
Oh, it's a great show. It's a really solid adaptation. It knows when to cheat. It knows when to just throw literally every flourish and ounce of shading at the screen for maximum shoujo manga effect. No, it's one of these great shoujo reverse harems in the tradition of Oran or Fruits Basket. It's just a delight to watch. And of course, it also has the advantage of being like, it is about a fujoshi and it just fucking revels in it. It hams it up all the way through, and it is fun because of that, at least to me.
Yeah, I watched the first couple episodes of this one, and you talk about it as a reverse harem, like those other shows that came before it. And I think that what kind of makes this weird as a reverse harem show is the fact that the guys are really not interesting or kind of notable, or at least with the way they've been introduced so far. They were kind of all introduced at the same time in the first episode, with no real room to establish their personalities or likable traits or anything.
And I think that's where, because I watched or have read the manga and keeping up with the manga, like, I can deal with that, because I'm sure at a subliminal level I know that's coming.
Yeah, I'm sure
so
that
I'm just enjoying that I'm seeing these people who I already know more about than I am seeing. It's going to get fleshed out later on, and I think they made some intentional pacing choices so that they could bring in as many people as they could in a shot. I mean, the original comic does that a bit, but even some of the later introductions, they've clearly edged forward so that they can then do what are probably going to be some backstory, flesh out those people episodes, and then I'll be curious to see sort of how far along they get in this, because the arc that they're in the middle of right now would probably be a good place to have as your season finale. But there's other places in the show that could be a good stop, or in the comic that could be a good stopping place for the show. So I'll be very curious to see how they decide to pace it. But so far, I think it's just been a really enjoyable watch. Like, I thought, I might watch this, and the second I got through the first episode, I'm like, if it weren't already late, I'd be just marathoning right now. And really, the next day I got home from work and just finished, caught up like that.
So here's the thing. It's just that usually in these types of shows, the main character is kind of a self-insert kind of
no, and I
bland
think
character. Here, the main character is significantly more interesting than these guys that are all after her.
No, I think that's very intentional, though. It's a bit like that in the comic, where she's actually the one with depth. Which, to be fair, I don't think it's necessarily without precedent. I think Oran benefited a lot from how much more depth Haruhi had up front.
I don't know. The main character is, on one hand, the Fujoshi aspect is really entertaining. I think my favorite part of it is actually her lusting expression that she makes whenever she's fantasizing about either BL or fantasizing her friends or the people that she knows in BL scenarios. That is really funny.
The trashiest of Fujoshi.
Yeah,
and they play it to the hilt.
But I mean, there have been other titles that have done that and
for sure
done it a little better. The other thing about the show is that it has that whole sort of self-hating aspect of it. When she starts out really fat in the first episode, and I think one of the big controversial things of people I follow on Twitter was that they actually gave her a fat voice, which is a little distasteful. I mean, that's kind of irrelevant after the first episode.
It's a little ridiculous. Well, or is it?
Or okay, I guess not. I've only seen two, so
yeah. No, I mean, there is an aspect to that where that's maybe a bit much, but I don't know. I think it. In a weird way, though, it's I think it fills in a gap that I'm sure a lot of people when they were reading the manga were somehow magically didn't realize they were filling in that gap either. They were filling in different voices when they were reading it. I'm not sure if I would necessarily look to it as a progressive title necessarily either. It's a comedy.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a comedy. It's not. I don't think you should It's not the comedy should necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily trying to punch at anybody either. And if anything, is mostly self-deprecating, which is, I feel okay.
Well, it depends how you look at it. I mean, if you can accept its sort of the ridiculous level it takes it to, it's harmless. But yeah. I mean, some people could read it in a really negative way. I think I find it entertaining. I mean, I certainly find less tasteful things entertaining as well.
Yeah, we've watched stuff way less. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not talking about, by the way, I feel like we, it's good for us to talk about what we're watching this season, but also that back to those maps real quick. It's no Keijo.
Keijo,
talk about
remarkably absent from the Canadian map, but very prominent in the U.S. map.
Yeah, especially in the South.
That's like that always that thing though, where it's all like you look at it's like when Pornhub releases their maps of common search terms, and it's always the most like whatever they think the area would rail against the most, that's the most popular search.
It's just the one thing everyone watches and no one wants to admit.
Yeah,
the South is crazy about drifters as well.
New York State is also one of the top Keijos, which I did not expect.
Yeah, I'm not even quite sure how to place that. I also would not have called Izetta for Texas.
That's a weird one for sure.
Yeah, Texas is pretty populated, but then you get like to the like Montana and Idaho.
I feel like
Izetta, which that's another show I watched.
I watched the first episode of that.
If for people who haven't seen it, it's this season's like show that takes place in like the early 20th century type show, but throw some magic in. I'm a bit it wasn't bad. I watched the first episode and I thought it was all right. But what kept bothering me was how, this is clearly World War II era, but for some reason they didn't want to fully commit to the countries, and they came up with like they went halvesies on some countries and suddenly renamed some other countries and made others like what Nelson Muntz thinks is Germany. Germania is part of the show.
That is like such a weird kind of, that they made a very bizarre compromise, like production committee like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the in-universe explanation will be, but magic, so different history, that we know that the real thing is like, well, we can't just say the word. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, fine, well, what would you use?
Yeah, the animation quality was great on the show, and I guess if you like historical or alternate historical stuff, it does deliver in that area. What has been most interesting about it is that is following the discussion about it, because this show is co-created by apparently the same guy who created, or I'm not sure if it was the creator or director of Quasar of Stigmata, which is of course the breast milk show from a few years ago.
I like how it's like you can't. There's no sugarcoating it.
Yeah,
it's like that show.
People have been like in anticipation of just seeing how skeevy it's going to get, or counting down to when all this sort of subtextual pervertedness is going to emerge. Apparently it took 4 episodes, from what I've been reading. Which, I feel that if they had just been upfront with that kind of thing in the show right from the beginning, it would have been better or easier to swallow.
Yeah. It's kind of weird shifting gears between like Maria Sama Gamitaru into Seikon no Quasar. Like you can't. It's a big gear shift to make.
That's an interesting comparison there.
Well, it is the soft shoujo ai, really not Yuri title into like the just straight fan service exploitation. And I haven't heard Izetta being like Quasar lewd, but if that potential's there, like that's a weird gear to shift, especially because it's like, it's not like having it in a World War II AU setting means that you have to somehow play it safe until you get people chill. Like Strike Witches kind of broke a lot of ground on that, for better or worse, and it doesn't give a fuck from square one. Yeah. So also, you can clearly just be nuts from the get-go with AUs.
The new Brave Witches show also debuted this season. Thankfully, it has not shown up on any map yet.
Would be really weird. It could be really weirded out if Europe's just World War II AU histories. Be like,
yeah. The Europe map is actually, by the time this episode's out, the Europe map probably will be out. But it would be funny if it was all Izetta and Brave Witch across that entire. But here's the thing with Keijo, which is unbelievably upfront about it. Shameless. It's shameless salaciousness. Because this is of course the show where girls balance themselves over a pool and try to knock each other off using their butts.
It's the ass fighting show. Let's just cut to the chase here like the show does.
But like people are very openly embracing it. Probably because it's just so upfront about what it is. I watched 2 of them and like the novelty completely wore off for me after 2 episodes.
I didn't even get one, but I was like, at least I could tell that they really had their heart in that one episode.
They put their heart and soul into those sequences, let me tell you.
The Crunchyroll map of the U.S. doesn't have this in its key, but the biggest anime in Arkansas is Bungo Stray Dogs Season 2.
Yeah, that's the lone Bungo Stray Dogs presence right there. I've never watched any of that show, but I've heard some things.
Slightly south of lone 48 contiguous states, lone Haikyuu in Illinois, because it's also big in D.C. and Hawaii. But only those.
Meanwhile, Haikyuu taking on some provinces here. Like we got
the thing to remember about this map also is that chances are a show that's not well represented in one area could be the second or third top show in other areas as well. So that's not to say that Haikyuu isn't popular in the U.S., but I think one of the things that really stands out on here is that in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario, arguably the three most important provinces when it comes to anime fandom, because they're home to 4 of the 5 biggest conventions in the country. Haikyuu is just totally dominates in all of those areas. That is a stark contrast to the U.S., where Drifters seems to be the show that dominates in the important markets down there, which are, typically Washington and California.
And also in a lot of the East Coast.
A lot of the East Coast.
Major
it's got Florida, it's got the Carolinas. Although Keijo just took New York by storm.
I would have expected New York to also have been Drifters, because those Washington, California, New York, those are kind of the states where you get the heart of anime fandom in the United States, especially on the West Coast.
Funny you say that, because other important anime markets like Massachusetts, also Keijo country. Georgia, also Keijo. And
Keijo for Adult Swim confirmed. No.
Yep. They're gonna run it Sundays at 4 a.m. Because they don't want to put it anywhere else.
It'd be something different. That's
what I also like is that Yuri on Ice has a surprising rural representation, or representation in what if we're going back to the 538 maps, usually very red states. Utah.
Yeah, it's big in the Midwest.
Good old Mormon Utah. Repping that Yuri on Ice. Kansas? No, Kansas is. Kansas.
Yeah.
With the Yuri on Ice.
I will. Have you guys had a chance to check out Yuri on Ice?
Yes.
Because I know me, and I know the second I watch it, I gotta watch all of it, and it's my binge watch this week being back fresh from being in Japan, where. Pro tip, everybody, you'll virtually never see anime on TV because it's all running at garbage hours on channels your hotel or ryokan won't have.
You just gotta, you have to know the schedules. You have to know the schedules in the region you're in.
And even that's a chase. So anyways, my binge watch was Kiss Him Not Me, since I was already reading the manga. And I made the fatal mistake of starting just an episode. And so I knew that the second I did that binge watch, I'm like, I'll do the same thing with Yuri on Ice later. I'll get to it when I don't have other things to do. Like this podcast.
Yuri on Ice, I will say, I think for me so far, it is probably the best anime series I've seen this year, despite the horrendous production problems that have emerged in episode 4 and apparently in episode 5, although I haven't watched that yet.
For watching the first episode, it's just you see the amount of money and work and labor that they're dumping into these figure skating scenes, and you just wonder how the hell can they possibly keep this up? And I guess the answer is they can't.
Watching it seems like they've developed a specific approach or algorithm or something for doing the figure skating sequences.
They do have they've hired a full-time skating choreographer for that show.
They have, and the whole approach to it seems to be really innovative, and then yet well integrated, and that holds true even in the low budget episodes. But man, they're taking a big hit. Apparently, there was a discrepancy where the version of episode 4 and episode 5 probably that ran on Crunchyroll, they received that like a day earlier than the broadcasters in Japan did, and as a result, the version broadcast in Japan actually had a bunch of the cuts fixed, which was a remarkable.
That makes sense because, like, you know, in Japan they can just turn anything in by the skin of their teeth as long as it gets to the network in time. But, like, you know, with streamers, then they actually need time to give it to a translator so that person can translate it into English or other
and encoding and all this other shit on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. Put in the metadata, the subtitles, etc.
This kind of situation makes me almost wish that, you know, Crunchyroll would just wait a day to get the better masters if that's what they have to do.
I do hope that they're also in a position. I mean, I know it's a bit different when they have these Blu-ray redos, and it's a little harder for them to somehow get those materials. But it would be really great if they could at least, you know, fill in the gaps and get what ultimately broadcasts, especially for titles that aren't just like adding fan service between, you know, terrestrial and satellite, but really fixing broken shit like we have with Yuri on Ice.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, they probably have to renegotiate something, and from what I've observed, they never seem to go back and replace a broadcast version with a fixed version later on down the line. Typically, whatever they show first is kind of what they're stuck with. You know, I'm sure that with Yuri on Ice, even if we get a lot of bad cuts in the coming episodes, I hope that they take a week off and kind of get back on track, if that helps the later half of the series. I'm sure everything's going to look like absolutely gorgeous and perfect when it's out on Blu-ray, because the show is in such capable hands, even if they can't keep up with the broadcast schedule. But the thing is that even if that is all fixed on the Blu-ray, like those really sketchy initial versions, that is what is going to stay on Crunchyroll. And of course, Crunchyroll broadcasts this, I think they said, everywhere in the world except for Japan and China. So that is the version of the show that
definitive version.
That will be the version that the majority of people on Earth watch. Whereas only the few that were sold on it enough to buy the Blu-ray will see a completed version, or people who watch the broadcast version in Japan. You know, this is one of the problems with streaming, is that you can be kind of stuck with an imperfect product if
it doesn't have to be that way. They just aren't. And this gets into me, you know, when I say play a global game as a distributor, this is part of that game. You update your shit, you clean it up. If somebody makes a Criterion version of what you do, that's what you want on your service, you know?
And I feel like we've been used to, you know, we've kind of been watching imperfect versions of anime for a while, even back to the torrent days, where, like, you know, they regularly do fix mistakes for physical media.
Yeah.
But that's also why, like if you watch Attack on Titan, if you watch the version on Hulu, because they simulcasted it, you get the TV version. But if you watch it on Netflix, it's the finished physical media version, because they didn't add it until well after it ended.
Yeah, and I guess it's the kind of thing where if Crunchyroll is going to end up with essentially the exclusive streaming rights to something, and in a lot of like, I think, you know, they're now that they've done this whole alliance with Funimation, unless the part of the game is Crunchyroll becomes this essentially the place for anime streaming, and oh shit, if you want the nice version, you're just gonna have to get the DVDs that our partner Funimation released, the Blu-rays. Like, I can see that. I really hope that isn't the actual business plan. And I hope that the thought hadn't crossed their mind and I've just put it in there, because if that's the actual business plan, that is going to, I think, do more damage than good. If the whole idea is you're trying to use streaming as a means of choking off piracy, if piracy can magically give you a nicer copy, there will still be a hole for piracy to thrive, where otherwise people would have been like, why are you risking all this stuff just for this when the same thing's on another service? The second it's not the same thing, there's a problem.
I think that Yuri on Ice might be their highest profile show that they've had that is having, like, really major animation problems. So, I mean, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens. Maybe they will change their way of approaching it.
Or maybe if they're genuinely stuck on it and they can't change it, maybe this will get them to realize it's like, we can't afford to have this with future titles. Like, they can make this mistake on a high profile thing once. It can't be the pattern, though.
If only Japan had enough animators to actually animate all the shows
this
that are
kind
in
of-
production there right now.
Kind of gets at another recent problem.
Yeah.
There's 70 plus new anime this season.
Yeah.
Holy
Over
shit.
70 shows.
Now this is getting back to, because I remember some of the pre-bust
a
seasons
record.
were.
There has never been this much action.
Oh yeah, because that was annual. That was annual when they were talking 100 being unsustainable.
Yeah.
And we're doing literally 70% of that over that. And it's not like I don't feel like there's been a proliferation of talent to staff that.
Yeah, and there's certain, even if there's a cutback, they're probably not going to magically start paying animators any better than they currently are.
Well, in the American industry, if we made like half of what Japan puts out annually, we'd fall apart.
Even giving the fact that Japan does a lot more of the process in Japan versus the U.S., which as you've noted in your Twitter and in other places, so much of the U.S. process is now being handled overseas, including things that you've done, like episode like storyboard direction itself at points being done by animators in Korea and over other places overseas. Mm-hmm. You're saying basically if the U.S. tried to do 30 new 30 new shows a season, 13 episodes over the course of that chunk, just forget it.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to find enough people who are qualified. We don't have that animation infrastructure here that Japan has. And I mean, this leads to a whole nother discussion about how we view work culture versus how they view work culture. But
I mean, anime is essentially
we can't do 70 shows a season. I'd be shocked if we could do 40.
I mean, anime thrives off of essentially exploiting people who are so unbelievably passionate about just the work in general that they are often willing to work for unbelievably low wages. And
speaking of the sleazy and exploitative environment that sometimes goes into anime, Girlish Number.
Yay. You mean
holy
Shirobako, but with dicks?
Yeah, no, I like how they basically it is very much like everybody on that show is just incredibly fucking unlikable. Like it doesn't matter whether they have cute design or regular dude design, just everybody's just terrible. Like it's always Sunny in Shirobako. Like, that's Girlish Number. It's like everybody's that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch. It's actually hard to watch because it's just like you can't root for anybody.
The show is very deliberately insidious in the way it presents everything. Because like the moe designs are always going to be there for marketing purposes, but here it seems that they're really kind of gaming that to mess with viewers and turn their expectations and feel really uncomfortable with all the general incompetence and egos and
just
negative attitudes,
sheer unbridled exploitative commercialism too.
Yeah.
Like they're clearly making this show to make a buck, and they really are sort of talking down to the audience in a way. It's like the people who make this stuff that you love so much and go to the lives to see in Akihabara, Denden Town, they fucking hate you. They fucking hate you. And like that's the moral of really the first episode of the show. Pretty much puts that in no uncertain terms, and then it just doubles down on it with each passing.
I found the end of the first episode funny with how they're like we'll combine idols and we'll combine light novels. It's perfect. And everyone, and like the main character is like, oh, what a stupid idea. And like, and you're the main character. And she's immediately in love with it, of course.
Yeah.
But her brother's like, oh boy.
Yeah. I like how he's really like I think the other thing is in Shirobako, like any of the sort of core group of ladies in the show, can act as audience inserts depending on what the audience particularly had is what they would have dreamt they would have done in anime. The audience insert here is the brother, who is he's the guy who's sitting there as sort of the chorus being like, look at these fucking idiots. And the fact that he, at least in as much of the show as I've been able to get through without just like throwing my phone discuss, he's there basically to like shake his head. Like he's not there to necessarily drive the plot because this train is leaving the station with or without him.
I do like when she asks like, why do they make anime they know won't sell? And even he's not really sure of that.
Well, then I like how it's like that. It is the biggest lampshading of, by the way, we know this show's niche.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the show that they're about to make is why they make anime that won't sell. They don't intend for it to turn out this way. But damned if it doesn't sometimes happen.
That makes me wonder how popular the show is in Japan. I don't think I've heard anything about that. I know Shirobako was insanely popular, but I mean, it really...
Not here.
Yeah, not here, but in Japan. But I mean, that show obviously sugarcoats a lot of things. Although one thing that I found that was I noticed was common between the two shows is that the way that they depict production committee meetings is almost exactly the same.
I like how that was one thing they clearly didn't sugarcoat in Shirobako. It's like, yeah, no, the people who are like in the production meetings are dicks. Like, they're also bad people. Like,
it's like being in a production committee meeting is such a bizarre experience that they just had to recreate. Like, in Shirobako, they just had to recreate it and not sugarcoat it in any way. Just it has to be seen to be believed.
There's nothing to soft sell, but there's also nothing to satirize. It is inherently the joke.
Girlish Number, it did not place in any of the map. Also, one other thing to note about that show is that it was actually licensed by Sentai, and I think that at first it looked like it was going to be a Anime Network exclusive, but then it showed up on Crunchyroll. In fact, I don't think they have any exclusives this time around. I think that may be a thing of the past at this point.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen with Anime Network that basically the wall has been built.
Yeah, I suspect that they'll just keep it going because people are subscribed to it and they don't want to lose that money. But
yeah, it's free money, so that as long as people are like, it's gonna become like the anime equivalent of an AOL subscription. People will forget it's on their credit cards. Oh shit, I'm still subscribed to Anime Network?
TAN, what's that?
I'll leave it as an abbreviation so I can be like, shit, that might be some sort of fraud prevention service. I better keep it.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to the map, I think despite the fact that Yuri on Ice is only in two provinces, Quebec and Prince Edward Island, like the most notable thing about it is that it's pretty Fujoshi dominated.
It's like Canada's the Fujoshiest country.
See, the thing about Haikyuu, I've not watched Haikyuu myself, but like it is the big Fujoshi title because obviously Yuri on Ice is popular in that dimension, but it's sort of a show that has broad appeal and everyone's watching, whereas Haikyuu kind of embraces all those key points for a Fujoshi hit, mainly in that it is not ostensibly targeted at women at all. It is something that has been repurposed. It is Shonen Jump. It is a Shonen Jump title, so it has that appeal of something that Fujoshi are able to take and repurpose as something for women, and it's definitely something that crowd is more likely to latch onto and continues to.
It has the advantage of because it comes from a manga, it has this huge lead up. There's a lot of people who like this is the thing they're waiting for, so it's definitely going to do. Again, I'd be very curious to see how these things average out over the whole season versus the first handful of episodes, because it's going to favor the established so much as manga reader, are people reading them in the West can establish these things for sure.
Though I forgot one thing earlier. I was saying all the states that are like home to the big anime conventions are all about them some Keijo. Well, this map leaves it off, but Maryland, home of Otakon, also Keijo.
Yeah, it's true.
But do most people who go to Otakon live in Maryland though?
And to be fair, the last Otakon that was going to be in Baltimore with all the great Baltiport delays was just held this year. So now it's about DC. Yep. DC, Haikyuu, which is very interesting. I can only assume Barack Obama, huge Fudanshi. He's like trying to get people into buying Obamacare. He hasn't yet done like some sort of like Tumblr pairing driven sale version for that. It's wasting time just by doing all these web comedy bits.
I am gonna miss Obama. It's interesting that you pointed out that Keijo is popular in the anime con states because I mean Drifters is big in California, which is of course the Anime Expo, and then Washington, which is SakuraCon.
Yep.
I've always felt that those markets, maybe it's just because of where I live, but I've always felt that those markets are kind of reflect what is most popular in the anime fandom in the U.S. Okay, the thing about Drifters is it's one of the...
Drifters was pretty anticipated. Like, you can't always... Sometimes I let the Anna Twitter bubble cloud my perception of what is actually popular and what is just perceived to be popular. But, like, if someone told me... Like, if Crunchyroll said, like, Drifters is, like, one of our top 3 anime titles this season, including everything even from last season, I'd completely believe them.
I'd buy it, yeah. It's one of those...
Yeah, it's got the Hellsing connection, and people are huge fans of that.
It follows the path of those sort of Adult Swim friendly shows. Obviously, those types of shows don't always actually get on Adult Swim, but that's what people talk about when they think of shows that are engineered for a U.S. audience. I watched Drifters myself personally. The first 2 episodes, I didn't find it. I guess the animation quality was good. I didn't really find it that exciting. I don't think it would really be getting that much attention if Kota Hirano wasn't the creator of it, and it didn't have that Hellsing connection. A lot of the appeal comes from just relying on all these usual Sengoku era Japanese history tropes. It's like, yeah, I get it. You guys love Oda Nobunaga.
I saw a golden statue of that guy. He was pretty dope.
But still, it embodies that kind of pre-built hit kind of formula that we're familiar with, and of course it's been a hit in those key markets. And yet the representation is pretty low in Canada. It's in the Yukon, also sparsely populated and is going to have more erratic results, and Manitoba.
Which, to be fair, by a U.S. standard would be like saying like Wyoming. It's just as kind of there aren't necessarily, the major, it's not, you do not have one of the major cities of Canada in there other than, well, there's a capital of a province there. And like, well, there's a capital of a territory in Yukon. Come on. Yeah. Like, it doesn't, yeah.
But I just find it kind of interesting how in the key provinces, and also New Brunswick, I forgot to mention, is also Haikyuu. Like, the most Fujoshi of Fujoshi shows is, like, just totally dominant. And it kind of goes back to that, sort of generalized but also kind of valid perception that the anime market there's sort of a gender focused split between the two. You have the US, which is more grounded in DBZ and Cowboy Bebop as their cultural phenomenon, and then it's Sailor Moon and Inuyasha here. I know we've talked about this endlessly on previous episodes, and I think we've taken it apart to the point where you can't generalize this stuff too much, but I mean, that if we take these maps at face value, I mean, that's kind of what I see here. Like, Canada is like an overwhelmingly female dominated Fujoshi oriented market.
Well, especially the other things that show up, which is like All Out, which again gets that Fujoshi repurposing.
I don't think that anybody's watching. I didn't even think anyone was watching All Out. The Twitter reaction to that show that I saw. It was really hyped up. People thought it was going to have like guys with really detailed butts in it, and then like the reaction I saw was that there weren't enough butts in episode 1, and then everyone stopped talking about it. But
clearly in Canada, not everybody stopped talking about it.
I guess.
Yeah, it is rather interesting to see. Yeah, there is definitely the Canadian map is definitely like much more Fujo in tone, and really, I mean, the only strictly the 2 shows that are kind of like, I guess, relatively mainline is the Gundam.
Yeah, and even Gundam Northwest Territories.
Yeah, it's one way up in the Northwest Territories, and 2, even like Gundam shows have always had a bit of, certainly as of late, have had their Fujoshi contingent. And Drifters, which is like, okay, the show that everybody expects to be big is big deal.
A quick note about Northwest Territories: I was totally expecting them to be Keijo, because a few months ago. A few months ago, Vice released this map showing the top porn searches in each Canadian province, and Northwest Territories was hentai. They were the only one that got hentai. So I was pretty sure it's gonna be Keijo.
They're not going to bother with Keijo then, because they're already getting it. Like, they're already going for the raw, uncut. Why are they? It'd be like, their top searches were for cocaine, so clearly they love coffee. It's like, no, they've already gone straight to the punch here.
I think that people still generally kind of understand that the markets in the UK, Australia, and the US are are different. They're all grounded in different history. You know, in Australia, you know, they have their own history with what's aired on TV. Like Evangelion was a really large component of the fan base there when it was forming. And then in the UK, you have that whole history grounded in like manga entertainment, kind of shock videos and
get that 18 rating.
Yeah,
just throw a bunch of swear words.
Yeah, this ain't no Mickey Mouse.
And,
oh yeah,
yeah.
That's really all you need to say.
Yeah, it's anime, motherfucker.
And hentai that was edited down to an 18 rating just to keep the extreme video kind of appeal going, and then like Channel 4 would have like late night meetings of like Fist of the North Star and stuff. All that kind of weird off kilter underground stuff is kind of rooted in the UK. But I think more than ever now people are kind of generalizing the US and Canadian market. And this map just kind of shows that there is a difference that really should be acknowledged more. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you were to actually have just a North American map, I mean, excluding Mexico, because that'd be a whole other thing still. But if you just English-speaking North America map, and we can even take Quebec out of it if we'd like, you would still be like, there's this borderline between the two regions, because the only thing that would have bled over in that borderline is Yuri on Ice. Everything else.
Well, if you take out Quebec, then
yeah. Oh yeah, you don't even have that. You have this sort of, here's all this other stuff, and then Haikyuu, the only spot where that's showing up are things that are either too small to show on the map or what is that state? Illinois?
Chi-Town, Illinois.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna double down on Obama the Fujoshi now, or Fudanshi, because Illinois, he's Chi-Town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, DC, you know, unless, I mean, the other thing is like, I guess drill rappers are into Haikyuu. I really shouldn't say that. It's a terrible thing.
I hear a Lupe Fiasco is responsible for a lot of the Haikyuu hits.
I'm just really glad that Crunchyroll did this, and I hope that they continue to do more and maybe do more each season, so we can maybe see trends, even if these are like really simplified, maybe not super informative graphs. But
I know they probably can't give us too much, but I would like to see these, like, at least for the start and end of each season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'd like to see 4 episodes in, and then I'd like to see everybody's 13s of run, or 12s, or whatever runs them out. I'd like to see that. And then ideally weighted, so if there's some sort of screwball thing where, you know, something has 13 episodes and therefore would by default have more views, like it's taking an average over the set of episodes.
But overall, I'm just glad that they're going against that, you know, Silicon Valley trend of sort of homogenizing international markets and just kind of highlighting these differences.
Well, I don't think it's that they're homogenizing it. I think it's that they're showing that, in fact, that they know that they don't have a homogenous. Like, they're obviously looking at this data. Yeah. They had to build these maps and are probably seeing it's like, this may explain why they are trying to license such a breadth of things, because they understand that in any place that they operate, different things are working in different places. Internally,
they know that, but the overall sort of perception that they build around their brand is just that idea of things being offered as similarly everywhere as possible, with not a lot of acknowledgement for regional tastes. And this is like a rare acknowledgement that different countries have, you know, their own histories that influence what's popular based on when and where specific titles first appeared, and how that continues to influence audiences to this day, and will continue to influence audiences going forward as well. And you know, that's the kind of thing that interests me the most, but I kind of want to focus the show on more, because I don't think that's getting enough attention, especially between the US and Canada right now. I mean, actually, this is a separate rant I was going to go on. Funimation totally dropped their ball on their retail release of Escaflowne.
Speaking of companies that you have to ask why they're doing what they're doing.
So I ordered my, you know, collector's edition set of that show online, but I checked it like Walmart and at Best Buy, London Drugs, all the major retailers where you'd expect to see, you know, the mainstream anime titles show up. Nobody had it. Nobody was carrying it. They had there were limited supplies at HMV that sold out very quickly, and that's about it.
And it's weird because I have seen like stuff in Walmart recently that was a little bit like I saw, like, I can't remember what it was a box set for, but I was like, oh, that's a bit of an unusual take at my local Walmart here in Canada.
They got like Naruto and Hunter x Hunter again,
Hunter x Hunter,
Adult Swim stuff is showing up there. Cowboy Bebop and Space Dandy were everywhere when they came out, despite the fact that they did not air on basic cable here. I mean, obviously, Cowboy Bebop has a lot of cultural traction in the U.S. Ask your average Walmart customer in the U.S. if they've heard of Cowboy Bebop. Good chance you'll hear a yes. No, nobody in your average crowd is going to know about Cowboy Bebop in Canada. It never got the exposure here, and yet here,
guys, was a popular meme. Got spoiler conscious.
For the home video, the two markets are being treated like exactly the same without any type of consideration. Escaflowne, you could argue that it made as much impact in the U.S. with 7 episodes as it did in Canada, sure, but I mean, the fact is it ran on TV here for a solid 2 years during the height of the Pokemon phenomenon. So you put it in Walmart, it's gonna sell. That it has a lot of traction. And as a more mature title, it actually kind of single-handedly did a lot of the heavy lifting that Toonami shows did in the U.S. as well.
I'll have to check our local Walmart now that we have one.
You know what? Maybe I'm wrong.
Right, L.A.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one in Burbank now.
See, it would especially sting if they got it in Walmart in the U.S., but not Canada. But
that would be so harsh.
I'll bet you that when they sold those releases to Walmart at a wholesale level, they probably gave them materials that said "as seen on Adult Swim" when they sold them to Walmart Canada. I'll bet you anything.
I do know the Akame Ga Kill box set does say "as seen on Toonami" on it. Yeah. I want to point. Can I real quick? I also watched Magical Girl Raising Project.
Oh.
And
yeah.
Nowhere on any map. Goose eggs.
I've seen a few people talking about it in mainly a discourse kind of fashion with that whole deconstructing the magical girl and.
Oh yeah, Madoka has such a long tail, and the shows that are inspired by it just keep on coming. It's another. It opens up with a bunch of magical girl corpses. In the first scene is a close up of a bloody hand, and then the second scene is an aerial shot of all these dead magical girls. But yeah, so I wrote in my notes, I called it Magical Girl Tech Bubble. Everyone gets turned into a magical girl thanks to an app that they play a game, and there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that they get turned into a magical girl, and the main character of this does. And she meets up in this online. The app has a chat room where she can meet the other local magical girls. And long story short, there's 1 in 10,000. The odds are too good that you're going to be a magical girl. So the company that runs the app now has to start killing him.
Jesus Christ.
It's okay. I don't know if I'd watch any more episodes of it though.
Oh man,
it's a dark magical girl show.
Yeah, the aspect people seem to be latching onto is the fact that the magical girl identities are all literally any kind of person. There are some that are actually men in real life. There are some that are old women.
That's the other main character is a boy who ever since he was a boy loved magical girls, and now he is also a magical girl.
Yeah, so it seems to be giving a lot of material for bloggers from what I've seen. But no
classicaloid on any of these maps.
Did you see that one? I've heard bad things. Any other shows you guys wanted to talk about before we wrap up? Did anybody watch March Comes In Like a Lion?
No.
I should, but I haven't yet. Again, I have a feeling I'm gonna I feel like again, to be interestingly, even though I'm really absolutely adore Honey and Clover as a manga and as an anime, amazingly, I have not read any of March Comes In Like a Lion. So I'm in that position of being again, if I start this, I know I'm not going to drop it until I'm caught up. I'm just leave it be till after I get other stuff done.
I think you might be better off sticking with the manga. They directed the hell out of this show, but it's done by Shaft, and their whole approach just, I haven't read the manga, but I can kind of tell by watching it that the way that they're directing it is just completely out of sync with how the original comic is and what the original comic is trying to convey. There's a huge dissonance between their approach to it in the medium of anime and how the comic is and was probably supposed to be. I find that very distracting, kind of experimenting with all this directorial stuff on top of the source material, and it just never meshes. So I don't know, I might watch more, but it left me kind of cold. I was just I can only really shrug at the final result, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I will say that I feel like this season, more so than others, there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to at least get an episode in of. While I was in Japan, I caught by accident, I think, first or second episode of Show by Rock, which was interesting enough, not understanding most of it, that I then turned around and watched some of the actual Crunchyroll stuff. And I can see why that was actually on at an hour I could catch, but not also,
It's Sanrio's attempt at moe, so
yeah,
it's kind of a weird middle ground.
It's in a weird middle ground, so it's like it ran at like 10 at night, but it was also, like I said, it certainly wasn't going to run at 10 in the morning either.
I like how 10 at night is considered early time slot.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's just nothing on. Like that, like a really big takeaway is there was anywhere near primetime television. Mm-hmm. It was just talk shows on all the broadcast networks, every last one, as best as I could tell.
Yeah, even dramas have been
there's no dramas even.
Displaced by variety shows on Japanese TV too.
Mm-hmm. We bitch about reality here. We have no clue.
Yeah.
in the Canada or the US, we just have no clue how fucking bad that can get. But what I will say about it is, about Show by Rock specifically is I do like the setting, like the MIDI city and all this sort of music-y accoutrements they've attached to everything. Really, as a musician, just fun world building. Like it ultimately means nothing. Like it's just not attached with any actual depth, but it's very cute.
Cool. And yeah, the last show I had was Miss Bernard Said, which is a new short one, which is pretty entertaining.
That was great. That is a book nerd's dream, and it's also very brisk because there's no way in hell, like 22 minutes of that would be painful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But 7 is or whatever it is great. Like it's just lots of great jokes and references to various writers. Like they do this whole Haruki Murakami bit that's just had me dying. Yeah, like just Jesse could attest to, like, we watched that, came over, we watched that, and I'm just fucking can't breathe.
He was
so
true.
Good.
The show is basically about this girl who is obsessed with books in just about every sense. She loves, the different editions and the different covers, and in Japan there's a whole dimension with the different translations that come out and how the translations compare with each other. She loves all of these little details, but she doesn't actually care about reading the content at all.
Yes,
she's only about aesthetic.
She doesn't read any of these books. So whenever she's trying to ape anything from these books, it perfectly smacks of somebody who's heard what they're about, but it's never read.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that all of those aspects of books still give you plenty to talk about and obsess over as well.
Oh, I watched an episode of Blood of Wars.
Oh, right. I was going to ask you, Blood of Wars. That's the Chinese co-production.
Yes, it's animated in Shanghai. It's a Japanese-Chinese co-production. I kind of blanked out partway through, but I mainly remember it does have sock boobs. And
I don't know why they were stuffing like their bra, or that like they move like just
when I say sock boobs, I mean when each individual breast is like the clothing caresses it like a tube sock, so that it hangs out of the shirt,
Yeah,
I hadn't heard that term.
It just refers to that super lazy way of animating clothing. Quite a few shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so someone coined it when we were talking about High School of the Dead. That's what it is. I think it was on Ancast. I can't remember what it was or who said it, but when they said sock boobs, I'm like, yes, that's perfect. I don't know why it's called Blood of Wars as opposed to like vampires. The original translated title in Chinese is Time Prisoners. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't help but be kind of curious about a show called Blood of Wars. Like, let's be honest.
If you're otherwise mediocre, you better have a name like Blood of Wars so you stand out. But otherwise, how are you going to know what's the most? You're not going to get to be the most popular show in none of it otherwise.
That is the goal for every. They should do that in the production committee scenes in Girlish Number. We're gonna big and none
going over the numbers and being like, was there any place where we are the top show right now?
Yeah.
It shows the Canada map.
Oh. Hey, I maintain that anime and remote communities, I think it's a very interesting subject. I think I need to look into that.
I agree.
But, yeah.
I think you need to get somebody, like, if you can, it would be an incredibly compelling episode if you can get somebody from the Northern Territories and Nunavut and these other places.
Exactly.
In Canada, who are into that. I think it'd be even more interesting that if in the future there's a con way up north. That would be the most interesting con.
I'm surprised that no one started a con in the interior BC, even that far north. I think that would actually, But yeah,
because flights are miserably expensive.
Yeah,
and
but
it sucks to drive any of that stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's easier to find somebody in Nunavut to talk about anime on the show, than it would be to find somebody, a French-speaking person in Quebec, who can talk about the older stuff that aired on Radio Canada, because that cultural barrier is so strong. I mean, I always think of anime as like this, a cultural bridge for so many that can function in so many ways for so many groups. But between English and French Canada, it's just like that bridge is just completely collapsed.
Would it be okay if I wanted to talk about something? I hope it's not too large of a tangent.
Oh, sure.
Okay, just I was at Akiba Fest recently, which is it's basically an anime con here. It was here in Los Angeles. It's like anime convention meets farmers market. Is basically how it was set up. And we saw some of the panels, and it could not be more apparent that the anime streaming war appears to be finally over, and the winner is Crunchyroll. We saw the Funimation panel. They're basically just doing home video and simuldubs now. They share all their stuff with Crunchyroll. It's going to be 2017 is going to be a very interesting year, because now that the two biggest companies that were fighting over streaming rights and pushing the prices sky higher have now teamed up. So those licensing fees are probably going to collapse again.
Yeah, I'm not expecting there to be by autumn 2017. I don't think there's going to be 70 shows.
No, I don't think we're going to see 70 shows. Yeah. I don't think that means that the remaining 30 or whatever are going to be that much nicer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other than they may have at least not be in a raw personnel shortfall such that that's why they're missing deadlines.
Yeah.
They'll just be you're paying them garbage so people don't give enough of a fuck to meet the deadlines reason for missing deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Because passion will only take you so far before you're like, I'm starving and I have had every flavor of instant noodles from the Family Mart and I want to die. There is I think we're going to see the amount of money that had been flooding in the industry change. I kind of hope with that, specifically in the Canadian cases, we had thought that maybe because you'd have this competition here, maybe Funimation would continue to make things available, make their back catalog available for free. And we're now in this position where the back catalog is going to be in one place. And in Canada, that back catalog is now, that deep back catalog will be subscription only, unless they get back into ad supported streaming up here. And I will be very curious to see if as Funimation stuff comes up here or comes onto Crunchyroll service, do we eventually get back in Canada standard def, free streaming of the back catalog, or does eventually this no back catalog stuff start spreading to other markets? Like, is Canada going to stay this weird island for Crunchyroll, or does being market dominant now let them say to the advertisers, look, we have the eyeballs for this, period. So you want to advertise with us, and they can, and between the shows not costing them as much to acquire and being able to command more for their ad dollars, can they get back into that market here?
That's the big question. And obviously the whole purpose, or one of the main reasons behind the Funimation and Crunchyroll partnership, is that it helps them compete with the pirate streaming sites like Kiss Anime. But an important thing about being able to compete with those sites is that you have to give everyone access. And if somebody can't watch a year-old show on Crunchyroll and then just link their friend who doesn't have an account to it and say, hey, check this out. I mean, you're not going to be like, but you can't. The problem is that you can do that with the pirate streamings, and
you can do that with Crunchyroll in America. Like, that's the weird part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I can be now, and maybe this gets back to Canada's a small enough thing. They're just not terribly worried about the money they're leaving on the table, other than. It does, at least in Canada, like, legitimize this, like, well, I can't get access to this stuff for free. if it's older than this. And I know that Miles has gone into great detail on Twitter, Miles from Crunchyroll.
Many times he has.
Many times about most of the pirate streaming being of current season stuff. But this seems like a wall that you can choose to shut down if you need to. Now, maybe I'd have to think they've run some very clever math on it. But it's just annoying. It's annoying to be like, well, I don't care. I'm in a position where I don't have to care about the $70 a year for what Crunchyroll costs. But I think if you want to make sure that your younger viewership is coming to you first, it's really useful if they can get access to ad-supported streaming in standard definition of your back catalog content. It is a very fast way of choking out your pirate competitors or reducing their long-term viability, which is also something Crunchyroll should know given their roots as a quasi. To be fair, Crunchyroll more than anyone else should also understand the value of using free content as a means of establishing a business and understand that that's not a non-zero threat from their competitors, especially if they're willing to say, like, we'll operate on the black market and take whatever weird ad money we can get. The idea that you're going to somehow crush out these guys, you're a tech company, you know why that doesn't work. And you're a tech company that came out of the same roots as these guys, you double know why that doesn't work.
Yeah, also the pirate streaming site, I don't know what they pay for licenses, but pirate streaming sites don't pay for licenses. Yeah. And hopefully if those prices come down for Crunchy and Funimation, then that will decrease their operating expenses overall.
Yeah, I mean the big, I'm sure for them their biggest expense is it may actually be the licensing. They may be paying more on that than even what devs and bandwidth cost them, because that stuff has gotten developers have gotten more expensive, but the bandwidth and storage has gotten cheaper, and the dev cost of managing those things in some ways has gotten cheaper because you can offload so much of the tricky parts to companies like Cloudflare and Amazon AWS and all these things that simplify these costs. However, unfortunately, these things are absolutely within the realm of being leveraged by totally sketchy piracy sites, and they didn't also pay for the license. So hopefully lower license fees means they can look into ad-supporting streaming here in Canada again.
Hopefully that works. I mean, ad-supported streaming, it barely works here.
Yeah.
I mean, Hulu got rid of free Hulu. As been reported, vinyl records make more money than ad-supported streaming here.
Yeah,
I would have never thought, but
that doesn't surprise me at all. Crunchyroll has been pretty tight-lipped about this whole thing to this day. They're not letting a lot of details slip out about kind of the whole nature of the decision and whether or not they're going to go back on it. So I want to say there's a lot of wait and see, but we might never see. We could be in the dark about this for a long time. Let's leave it there for today. Guys, as always, big thanks for coming on.
Sure.
No problem.
Well, we may have had a little too much fun with this episode, but I hope you enjoyed it. The theme song, of course, is by Ultraclystron, which you can purchase as part of his album Packet Flood at ultraclystron.com. You can reach me through Twitter at ZonNCanada or email zonncanaدا@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes or on your podcast app of choice. As always, please recommend the show to anyone you think might be interested. See you again!